All right, so now that we're sort of back and publishing a lot of content on YouTube, one of the things I'm going to be talking a lot about is PokerTels. So those of you know, I serve two poker companies, School of Cards and Beyond Tells. And Beyond Tells was a crazy project that took 8 years, and it's sort of, in my opinion, like my legacy to poker. And it's really important to me. It's been a crazy journey. It will continue to be a crazy journey, but I just want to tell you the full story of Beyond Tells. So first and foremost, I want you to understand that I wasn't this like behavioral driven watch players type of player. When I first started learning how to play, I was sort of brainwashed by the online community. I didn't believe tells really had any value. I didn't look for them. Most of the time, I didn't even stare at other players. It wasn't really a part of my process. And part of the reason is I had read books on poker tells and I found them interesting, but I didn't see them as like valid or that useful. And then I vividly remember when I had the idea for Beyond Tells. I was on a bus in the South Bronx on my internship. I was on my way to the criminal courthouses in the South Bronx. And I was like probably like 19 or 20. And I was like, wow, it'd be really cool to sort of have video footage of people uninterrupted. Because most of the time when you watch like poker on TV, they're cutting constantly. So you don't really know what's going on because you watch one player and they watch the other player, one player, other player, and it's difficult to sort of figure out what's going on. So I was like, it'd be cool to just put a bunch of people in an office, put one camera on them and record them. And I didn't have the resources or anything. I couldn't actually execute. I couldn't do that. So basically, as the company started to evolve, as we had the school office in New York City for School of Cards. I don't know when it happened, but I was like, I really want to do this Beyond Tells thing, right? And I really want to sort of focus on. I didn't have the name Beyond Tells, but I was like, I want to study behavior, right? And essentially, what happened is we did our first study, and this was not really a study per se. I basically like reached out to a bunch of players. And I was like, hey, do you want to come play? And I mixed up the sample. I did a lot of things right, but I wasn't approaching it like a scientist or anything like that. It was just sort of like, let's record behavior uninterrupted and let's sort of see what we can find, right? So, and I talk about this on the website and there are methodology and all the sort of how it evolved. But to make a long story short, we had a bunch of players come in. I think at the time it was like 50-ish or 60-ish. We recorded them for around 10 days, I think. Players were coming in and out of the office, sort of playing with real money, and we were breaking everything down. And basically, my idea was to create, some of you were part of this. I was like, all right, I'm going to record this behavior. I'm going to do this thing called Beyond Tells, and it's going to be a 10 videos, 10 simple videos on like how we can use behavior more effectively. And my idea was, listen, it's difficult to sort of articulate what behavior and what movements are. If players could actually see the video, it'd be really helpful. So I did that. And when I first got the footage, so we recorded all these players play. When I first got the footage, I was just like, I don't really see anything here. Like I was like comparing when a player was nutted and then when a player was bluffing, and they just both looked like they were standing still. And I sort of was looking at all this stuff. I'm like, I don't know how much, and I saw a couple things, but it wasn't like super, super useful. And I had this moment where I watched a player play every hand sort of back to back. And I was like, oh, wow, he bet differently. And oh, wow, he did this differently. And what ended up happening is I sort of settled on this thing called grounding theory, which is an approach or method towards labeling and tagging behavior, and then looking for commonalities or correlations or directions between those data sets. And that's sort of the methodology we arrived at. And I'll post a link below of like the real sort of background behind our methodology. But this is why I said Beyond Tells was supposed to take at that time. It's like, oh, guys, we'll release the product in around 3 months. For those of you who are early members, it took like a year because I wanted to go back and do everything the right way. So we did the first study and then we built the first course, right? And then after we built the first course, we got sort of very interesting feedback in the sense that like some people were able to master it and they're like, this is amazing. Some people were like, I can't use this right now. But one of the things that I found the most interesting was that we ran ads for it and we made Beyond Tells available to anybody. So anybody that wanted to purchase it could purchase it. And I'd get people in sort of Beyond Tells that would be like, hey man, like, can I ask you a quick question? And then they'd be like, oh, I play this hand where I open with ace king and blah, blah. And they just had the most basic thought process in the world. And that's why they weren't even able to apply anything with behavior. So what essentially happened is between the first course and the second study, we went back and brought all of our sort of products online and built, the Cash Game Fix, the Predictive Edge, all these courses to get people almost ready for Beyond Tells, right? And then like I sort of looked at the whole course, I watched it again. We were just going to do some updates and I was like, you know what, I could do a hell of a lot better. So we did a second study, and this study was like 7 to 8 times larger than the first study. We brought in players from a lot higher level players, a lot better players, bracelet winners and players who like just grind 1, 2, and 2, 5, and players that play the highest stakes cash games. We just had a good diverse sample. And then we built the second course, which was way more methodological and built really on just my experience in online education for the past like 12 years. Like I've probably made upwards of like, I don't know, course curriculum for like 35 courses at this point between teaching at college and nonverbal group and school cards and Beyond Tells. And we sort of blend that all to something that actually sort of like works. And the reality is this took around, I don't know, like 8 years of my life at this point. It's something that it's something that I'm so proud of and so excited to sort of share. But there's been a lot of stuff with me around Beyond Tells. And I think one of the reasons why I didn't make a lot of YouTube videos is because like I sort of got in this habit loop. And this is for anybody that's like creating content. I got this sort of habit loop that like, Blake, you are going to be the default expert on behavior and tells. But I was sort of like afraid of being judged by the poker community. So like people would post a comment or something like, who the fuck is this guy? Like, this tells are stupid. And I'd like to say that it didn't bother me, but at that time, I don't think I had enough validity with working with others to know that like I was providing a massive edge, because it was sort of experimental in the sense that like, you release a course, release a product, it could take years before you're validating whether or not the processes are working or not. And I really was like wanting everything to be so perfect. Like, and you can see that in some of my earlier content, it's like just so scripted and so perfect. And I like watching that video of myself and like, I don't really like this person. I don't like listening to this person. I don't like, it just doesn't, it's not my vibe. It's not sort of what I want to sort of communicate in the world. But a lot of it came from sort of insecurities. And then really recently, what has happened is like, at this point, I've worked with so many damn players. I work with some of the best players in the world. I've seen it in my own game. And I just think that behavior is just such a massive edge. And it's something that players get so freaking wrong, and there's so many mistakes and so many cognitive biases, and I'm always working on improving our products and always working on sharing this. So a big part of this sort of channel is going to be based in behavior, and I just want you to understand it came from a lot, guys. Like, and I'm really confident in saying this. Like, I don't give a shit if some of you are like, oh, you're arrogant, whatever. I am the foremost expert in the entire world on behavior at the poker table. No one comes remotely close to me. I don't care who's written books. I don't care who has, discussed certain things. Like, I actually did real research on the behavior of poker players. I'm not saying I'm maybe the best at applying it. Some of you out there might be naturals and sickos at identifying behavior, but when it comes to the scope of knowledge and understanding of how behavior is related and useful in poker tells, there's no one that comes close. And that's just sort of my legacy, and that's sort of something that's very important to me. And I don't feel like I have done a good job demonstrating that. I've sort of been like hiding out and not really showing you the sort of power of behavior and sort of being authentic and integrating it. So a lot of the poker material and poker tells stuff that's going to come through, winter is coming is the best way that I can describe it. I don't have the blockages that I had before. I can make content left and right, sort of a machine when it comes to that. So there's going to be a lot of stuff about that. If you want, feel free to challenge me. Feel free to say like, I think this is bullshit. Just back up your reasons why. There's just so much shit comments sometimes, and I have no problem entering in like a back and forth intelligent discourse. And I make mistakes and I say things that are incorrect, but those of you who just say dumb shit, I'm not going to respond to. Those of you that say stuff that's like really grounded and sort of, I think that there can be, I think we can move poker forward by adding that. And that's really what it is, guys. Like, at the end of the day, like, I want to be responsible for moving the game forward on this behavioral level. So I want some of you to have to sit down at the table, look at a player and be like, is that a Beyond Tells player? Like, because I'm going to have to, I can't do the shit that I normally do because they're going to be able to pick up on something. Like, I want to have that sort of fear or that level of, I don't know, I find it really cool. I find it really cool that I can create a product, contribute to poker in a way that's sort of bigger than myself. And that's my plan. So, like I said, winter is coming, a lot of content on Poker Tells. That's sort of my emotions and sort of feelings around what took so long and why it took that long, but no more. So, yeah, any questions, post below. Look forward to schooling you guys all in the art of behavior and Poker Tells.